It is week 1. Drafts are officially over, and we're into the regular season. And you guys got to know who to start and who to sit. And we're going to start with wide receivers. First up is Jahan Dotson as a start. I want to start Jahan Dotson because last year, at the end of the year, he came back and he was looking pretty good. And in the preseason, he's had a really good rapport with Sam Howell. And Terry McLaurin is dealing with an injury, with a turf toe injury, which should keep him out. If not out, then definitely limited. And Jahan Dotson is probably going to be the wide receiver 1 there. They have a matchup versus the Arizona Cardinals, which I also like. So he's locked into me in the flex.
Yep. And I just want to preface this that we are picking players outside of the top 25 ADP. We feel like any player that you drafted before that point is probably going to be an auto start no matter what anyways. So we dove a little deeper with these picks to see if we can kind of help you guys decide your flex options or if you have injuries, etc. So with that said, next up is Courtland Sutton. With Judy out, Tim Patrick out, and KJ Hamler out, they really only have Sutton and Marvin Mims. They do play the Las Vegas Raiders, which last year was a pretty good matchup for receivers. So I wouldn't expect much to change. So I wouldn't be surprised if Courtland Sutton has a good game as, the main lone target there for Russell Wilson.
Expect in the first week that Russell Wilson probably does lean on a familiar face rather than going straight to that rookie. It usually takes rookies a while to get in there anyway. And since he's the wide receiver 2, if Judy misses, then yeah, I think Sutton's a decent play at the least. Next up, Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett, barely outside that top 25, but he's, a lot of people might have a little bit of worry just because there's 3 receivers there, but JSN probably not even going to play this week. So to me, he's locked in. I think that there's more than enough passing volume to get him and DK Metcalf really good weeks.
Yep. Skyy Moore is next up. I have no problem playing Skyy Moore, but he's going to be more of a flex and kind of as needed basis. I'm not trying to force him into my lineup if I don't have to.
Yep.
I know the over-under of the Detroit and Chiefs game is juicy. I think it's around 55 and a half, which is crazy high. But still, we've never seen Skyy Moore have a solid fantasy game in this offense. He's going into year 2. So I personally would like to see it before I trust him. But if you don't have a better option, he does have insane upside in what should be a high-scoring affair. And now that Kelsey does have an injury, this may provide a little bit more of a target share for Skyy Moore. So yeah, if you want to trust him, he does have insane upside.
This is to me for deep leagues. So we wanted to give a deep league option, and Skyy Moore is one of those. With the news with Travis Kelce, as of now, it's seeming like he's probably likely to miss. But obviously keep up to date with the news. And like you said, should be a high-scoring affair. And in the preseason, he has been locked in to the first team. So I think he's going to run a lot of routes for Patrick Mahomes. So always got that touchdown upside. We are giving away a signed Keenan Allen jersey. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel and leave a comment on this video. We just wanted to do a thank you for 500 subscribers. Thank you guys for helping us hit that. It's free. All you got to do is subscribe, leave a comment. So no cost to you, and you can win it. So no point in not doing it. Thank you guys for 500 subscribers, though. We just want to say thanks. Anyways, back to the video. Next up is Gabe Davis. Another player I'm not forcing into my lineup, but I'm absolutely fine with playing. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be looking at your flexes. Maybe you're in a 2-flex league, something like that, and you're like, I don't know. All these guys are about the same to me. To me, if it's that, I'm going to lean Gabe Davis because of the upside. He has the chance to score you a 90-yard touchdown at any given moment, and he did it last year. He had huge blow-up 30-point games, and I like that upside in week 1. So, and Aaron over here had a dream that he scored 3 touchdowns in week 1.
I did.
So
I did.
We'll see if that.
If he scores 3 touchdowns, I predicted it in my dream. So
yeah, we like Gabe Davis. I think he could, have some positive regression this year, and he's still locked into that role as the number 2 wide receiver.
Next up is going to be Chris Godwin. Not sure how many people know the news yet because it did kind of break today. But Mike Evans is looking for a new contract, and he did say he was willing to hold out if he does not get that by week 1, which, that's like, 5-6 days away. So he may not get it that quick. But regardless if he plays or not, Chris Godwin is someone I like. They are playing the Vikings, who project to be a very high-scoring offense. So if the Vikings score points, that means the Bucs are also going to have to score points. And Chris Godwin, through his entire career so far, has been a heavily targeted guy. I don't see that changing this year. Especially in any PPR format, I love Chris Godwin as like a flex with upside. Or if you did draft someone like Cooper Kupp or Jerry Jeudy, who may not play week 1, he's a great substitute to fill in for their absences.
Yeah, again, barely outside that top 25, more of a shallow league thing. But if you're worried in a shallower league about the quarterback situation, I'm personally not, especially with the Mike Evans news. But even if Mike Evans were to be, announced to start, I'm still okay starting him because of the volume I think he's going to see of targets. Next up, Diontae Johnson. He was drafted as the wide receiver 31, which surprised me because in most of my leagues he went earlier, but you may have drafted earlier in the season, and he was a lot lower at that time before he got sort of a hype train going for him. And so you may have drafted him to be at about that last flex spot of your starting lineup, and you may be looking at his matchup versus the San Francisco 49ers and think that's a tough matchup and I don't want to start him. If you have a great option, that's fine. However, to me, because he's more of a volume player, he's going to get a lot of targets, short yardage targets. That's something that the 49ers can absolutely give up a lot of. They're willing to bend, not break. So I think Diontae Johnson is going to get targeted a lot, and he'll be super safe pretty much all year for fantasy if he has the role that we expect him to.
Yep. All right. So now to move on to our sits. I'm going to make this first tip easy. So basically any of the rookie wide receivers we are sitting. So that'd be like Quentin Johnston, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Jordan Addison. And it's not that they can't have good games. It's just we haven't seen them play yet. We don't know their rapport with the quarterback. And oftentimes it does take rookies a couple games. I mean, if you remember a couple years ago when Justin Jefferson was drafted, it took him to week 3 before he even saw meaningful playing time. And that's someone as good as Justin Jefferson is. So sometimes it just takes these rookies a couple weeks to get on the field. And I personally, in my fantasy, I want to see it first. I don't want to just blindly trust a player. I want to see it first. The only exception I might make to this would be Jordan Addison, and that's a break glass in case of emergency type thing. If, say, you did draft Cooper Kupp and Jerry Jeudy, and now you're stuck and you're like, okay, now they're both possible missing week 1. What do I do? I'm not going to just avoid Jordan Addison at all costs. So I do think he has upside, but he is a super risky play, and I would not be surprised if he only got, like 3 or 4 points, which is not what you're looking for. So Please adjust your risk rating for the rookies for the first couple of weeks and don't just blindly toss them into your lineup, expecting them to be some superstar.
So important to note is that Jaxon Smith-Njigba is dealing with an injury, so he's a sit for that reason alone. Also, adding in the rookie scenario, I want to see what happens first. So he's going to be on the bench. Quentin Johnston, early in the draft season, he was going pretty high. So I did see a lot of mock drafts where people were drafting him to be in the flex. But in the preseason, didn't get a lot of reassurance on Quentin Johnston's role. He could easily start the season as the wide receiver 4 on that depth chart. So I would definitely be hesitant for Quentin Johnston. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, like you said, Jordan Addison is the one. The other one we didn't talk about is of the first-round receivers is Zay Flowers, and that's because our next sit are the Baltimore wide receivers. So Zay Flowers, Rashod, Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr. It depends on the draft platform you use as to how highly you drafted them and whether you're thinking of them as a starting player. And I think Zay Flowers should get in there as a starting player for you at some point in this year. But like you were saying earlier, we want to wait and see. As far as Rashod Bateman, his role is completely uncertain. I like having him on my roster because we don't know who the number 1 receiver is going to be in Baltimore. And that's sort of why they're all on the sit list, because we don't know who the number 1, we don't know who the number 2. It could be any order for these guys, especially to start the season. Same thing with Odell Beckham Jr. I'm going to have a wait-and-see approach with the Baltimore passing offense outside of Mark Andrews as long as he's healthy.
Yep. So next up on the sits is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. He went to a new team this offseason, the Patriots, so this will be his first game action with them. Also, he is dealing with somewhat of a knee issue / injury / we're not really sure. There was a report saying that his knee is completely blown up and that he may never play again, which I don't necessarily think that's the case, but there is definitely some truth to it. he is dealing with some discomfort with his knee or something. So he is another guy that, going to a new team, potentially injured. I just want to see it first. I do think at some point he may offer some PPR upside, but again, like we said with all the sits, I want to see it first. This is a new player in a new system dealing with a potential injury. Like that's not a good recipe to start week 1 and hope for a good game with.
Agreed. I don't want to mess with the injuries, especially on these lower ranked players where you can get a serviceable, replacement for him anyways that is about the same level without as much risk. Next up for the sits, Nico Collins, a player that I did like drafting this year, but again, I'm going to wait and see. Not because he's young, because, he does have a year under his belt, but it's because of the rookie quarterback situation with CJ Stroud coming in, a new offensive, entire new system for the Texans in general. And with CJ Stroud, rookie quarterbacks tend to be a little shaky, especially on their first start. If you go back and look at stats historically for that, it really does take them a few games to get into it. I believe in CJ Stroud's talent, and I do think Nico Collins will be a beneficiary of that eventually this season. But for me, I'm going to sit him until I see it.
Yep, completely agree. The next up, Michael Pittman. This argument's going to be pretty similar to the Nico Collins argument. New offensive staff, new quarterback, had a bad year last year. So with Pittman, I, again, want to see it before I can trust him. The knock on Anthony Richardson thus far is he may not be the most accurate quarterback. So that obviously will hurt Michael Pittman in Anthony Richardson's first game. You may see him bail out of the pocket often because that's what's comfortable and familiar to him, being such an insane athlete. So we don't really know what Michael Pittman's target share is going to be. We don't know how accurate of a quarterback Anthony Richardson's going to be. So he's just another wait-and-see type guy. He's not a bona fide superstar. He's not a stud. So for me, where you drafted him around wide receiver 30-ish, I think you can afford to sit him because you likely have 3 better options unless you went 0 wide receiver. But he is just a guy that I'm not forcing into my lineup week 1.
Yeah, if you listen to our advice this offseason, we do tend to lean wide receiver, so we wanted to get more options before we get to that Michael Pittman tier. However, I do think you can start him in a pinch. He's not like these other guys where I'm definitely sitting him. He's the one on the list where it's sort of for shallower leagues where it's like, if you have better options, I'm trying to sit him. However, if you can't, I understand because he is a talented player, so you can line him up. Lastly, Kadarius Toney. Again, with the Kelce news, you might be tempted to start Toney, and, if you watch him on the field, he's one of my favorite players to watch. However, we all know that he's already questionable for week 1, and even if he's, going to line up, which he probably will play some snaps, I don't think he's going to get a full workload. We didn't see any of that in the preseason, and I think there's a reason for that, and that's because they want to manage his workload and keep him healthy because they want to use him on goal line packages, on creative plays. I think they're going to use him a little more sparingly this year. I think he's a player I want on my, at the end of my bench to see what they do with him because you never know. And I don't try to predict injuries, although with Kadarius Toney, I'm definitely, again, going to see what happens first on that offense.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney is complete wild card. He could go off and average 20 points a game, or he could literally get hurt this Thursday and be out for the year. He's crazy. So I do love having him on my bench, just see what happens. It's a Patrick Mahomes-led offense. He is an insanely talented player when he is actually on the field, but he just started practicing this week. He was out pretty much the entire preseason with injury, before the preseason with injury. And so he started practicing this week. They do play a Thursday game, which gives him even less practice time. So again, as we kind of said earlier in the segment, it's a crazy over-under game, should be high scoring. So if you want to absolute dart throw and hope that you hit a Hail Mary, go for it. But that is way too risky for me personally.
We lean Skyy Moore there just for the amount of routes that are going to be run.
Yeah. Unless you're in like a 16 or 18 team league,
yeah, I'm
not starting Kadarius Toney.
Agreed. Again, these are flexible. Obviously, pay attention to your league settings and size and all that. Depends on your options. So take a look at your options and use this as a rough guideline, not, a guaranteed start, guaranteed sit. But those are our opinions. Let us know what you thought in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. And if you want to enter to win this Keenan Allen signed jersey, All you
Look
have
at
to do is subscribe to the channel and leave a comment on the video, and you will be entered to win a free jersey, free signed jersey. Why not? It's free. So check that out. Subscribe if you like the content. We've been the Fantasy Bros, and we're out.